It was a normal sunny afternoon when Janelle Harris walked into the luxury fashion store, Luxora, in downtown Manhattan. She had just finished a gym session, wearing her plain black leggings, a hoodie, and her favorite sneakers. Her curly hair was tied back in a bun, and she carried a small gym bag. She looked like any other woman out shopping, calm, focused, and quiet. But Janelle was not just any woman. She was the wife of one of the richest men in the city. She was smart, kind, and powerful in her own way. But that day, no one in the store saw that. As Janelle stepped into the air-conditioned store, a loud beep came from the security sensor near the door. She looked around, confused. She had no medal on her. The security guard gave her a sharp look but said nothing. The sound stopped. Janelle shook her head and walked in, thinking it was nothing. Inside the store, the atmosphere was cold. Everything was clean, shiny, and expensive. Glass shelves held designer handbags. Soft music played in the background. Two workers stood near the counter, talking and laughing. As soon as they saw Janelle, they stopped laughing. One of them, a young blonde woman named Tiffany, whispered something to her coworker and smiled. The other worker, Mark, narrowed his eyes at Janelle. Janelle walked toward a red leather handbag displayed in the center of the store. She reached out to touch it when Tiffany quickly stepped in front of her. "Can I help you?" Tiffany asked, her tone sweet but cold. "Yes," Janelle said with a soft smile. "I was interested in this bag. Can I see it up close?" Tiffany raised her eyebrows. "This one. It's limited edition, very expensive." "I know," Janelle replied. "That's why I want to see it." Tiffany looked her up and down, then gave a fake smile. "We keep items like these for serious buyers only. The sales section is in the back." Janelle was surprised. "I'm not asking for a discount. I just want to look at it." Before Tiffany could reply, Mark joined in. "Ma'am, this store has a strict policy. We don't allow touching of high-end items unless a manager approves. Maybe check out the outlet store downtown." Janelle's smile faded. She looked around. Other customers, mostly white, dressed in suits or designer clothes, were moving freely, trying on shoes, bags, and jackets. No one stopped them. But she was being watched like a thief. "I have money," Janelle said simply. "You're treating me differently." Tiffany shrugged. "It's just protocol, Mom." Janelle stepped back, her heart heavy. The people in the store continued to stare. Someone whispered, "Why is she even here?" She felt small, humiliated. She had done nothing wrong. She only wanted to shop. She turned around slowly and walked out of the store. The same security guard gave her a look as she passed by the sensor. No beep this time. Outside, Janelle stood still for a few seconds. Her hand trembled as she pulled out her phone. She dialed one number. The call rang once. "Hello," a calm male voice answered. "They did it again," Janelle said, her voice quiet but firm. "Where?" the man asked. "Luxora, 5th Avenue." They laughed in my face. There was a short silence on the other end. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I will be," Janelle replied. "But they won't be." She ended the call. She looked up at the sky. The sun was still shining. The city was still buzzing, but something had changed. In her eyes, a fire had started. The phone call Janelle made was short, but powerful. On the other end was Victor Harris, her husband, and one of the most powerful businessmen in New York City. Known for his calm nature and sharp mind, Victor didn't need to raise his voice to get things done. When he moved, things changed. Victor sat in his office at the top floor of Harris Global, a tall glass building that touched the clouds. He had just finished a meeting with international investors when he saw Janelle's name flash on his phone. The moment he heard her voice, everything else stopped. He didn't shout. He didn't ask many questions. He didn't need to. He knew that if Janelle said they had done it again, then someone had made a very big mistake. After the call ended, Victor slowly stood up. He walked to the window and looked down at the city. His eyes were sharp, cold, thinking. Luxora, the very store where his wife had just been humiliated, again. What they didn't know was simple. Victor didn't just shop at luxury stores. He owned many of them, including the building where Luxora stood. He was a silent investor in several brands and had the power to crush or grow any business in that district. He took a deep breath. Then he made 3 phone calls. The first was to his assistant. "Get me everything on Luxora, 5th Avenue. Staff list, manager names, complaint records." The second was to the mall board. "Emergency meeting tomorrow morning. Top priority." The third was to a young woman named Ava, a rising star in the fashion world. She had once pitched her designs to Victor. He hadn't made a move then. But now, maybe the time had come. After the calls, Victor sat back down and opened his laptop. He watched the security footage from Luxora. Every store under his control had silent cameras, extra ones that only he had access to. He saw the moment Janelle walked in, the way the staff whispered, the looks, the smirks, the coldness in their voices. And he saw the moment his wife quietly turned and walked away, holding her pain like a warrior. Victor didn't blink. Meanwhile, Janelle was home, sitting in her cozy kitchen with a cup of tea in her hands. Her daughter, Nia, only 10 years old, walked in and sat beside her. "Mom, why do you look sad?" Nia asked gently. Janelle smiled and brushed her fingers through Nia's curly hair. "I'm okay, baby." "Did someone say something mean to you?" Nia asked, frowning. Janelle paused, then nodded. "Yes, but not just to me. To people who look like me. People who they think don't belong." Nia looked confused. "But you do belong. You're amazing." Janelle smiled wider. "Thank you. And someday, you'll be even more amazing. That's why we have to show them. We don't fight with anger. We fight with actions." Back in the city, Tiffany and Mark were laughing inside Luxora. "Did you see her face when I said she couldn't afford it?" Tiffany giggled. Mark shook his head. "People like her always try to act rich. She didn't even have designer shoes." They had no idea what was coming. The next morning would not be like any other morning. Outside, a storm was building, not with thunder or lightning, but with power and quiet revenge. Victor didn't need noise to make his point. He only needed the truth and action. Morning came. Sunlight touched the windows of Luxora, and inside, the staff prepared for another normal day. Tiffany stood behind the counter, checking her nails. Mark arranged bags on the display wall, yawning loudly. "Probably another day of fake rich people pretending to buy stuff." Mark laughed. Tiffany smirked. "Yeah, let's see how many gymwear queens show up today." They had no idea that today wasn't going to be normal. At exactly 10:15 a.m., the glass doors opened. 3 black luxury cars pulled up in front of the store. The first man to walk in wore a tailored gray suit, a black watch, and leather shoes. His face was calm, but his eyes were cold. It was Victor Harris. Behind him were 2 men and 1 woman in formal clothes, holding clipboards and files. Tiffany blinked. Mark straightened up. "Can we help you?" Tiffany asked, her voice suddenly polite. Victor didn't answer. Instead, he looked around the store silently. His eyes scanned everything: the shelves, the lighting, the counter. Then, slowly, he turned to Tiffany. "You were here yesterday," he said, his voice low but sharp. Tiffany nodded. "Yes, sir. I work here. Are you looking for something in particular?" Victor stepped closer. "Actually, I'm looking for someone." Tiffany's smile froze. "Oh." Victor pointed to a camera on the ceiling. "That camera recorded how you treated a customer yesterday. My wife, to be exact." Mark coughed. Tiffany's smile dropped completely. "Wait, your wife?" she asked. "Yes," Victor replied. "The woman you humiliated. The one you told to shop at the outlet. The one you laughed at." Tiffany stepped back. "Sir, I didn't mean. Victor raised a hand. Stop. Don't lie. I've already watched the footage. Twice. Mark tried to speak, but his voice cracked. We didn't know she was rich, Victor interrupted. Important. Worth respect. Silence fell in the store. Shoppers had begun to turn and look. A few had even started recording with their phones. Victor didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He turned to his assistant and said clearly, "Start the process. Effective immediately." The assistant nodded. "Yes, sir." Tiffany's eyes widened. "Wait. What process?" Victor finally looked her straight in the eyes. "You just lost your job. And the store. Let's just say by tomorrow, Luxora won't exist on this street anymore." Mark looked like he had seen a ghost. "Sir, please. This is our livelihood." Victor took a step closer. "You think a job gives you the right to insult someone based on how they look. You think power is in your hands." He shook his head. "Real power doesn't shout. It acts." He looked around at the customers. "This place will be something better soon. A space where everyone is treated with respect." Then he turned and walked out. Tiffany stood frozen. Mark sat down on a chair, his face pale. Outside, Victor got into his car and made another call. "Ava," he said, "you're getting that space we talked about. Get your team ready. I want your designs in that building by next month." Ava screamed with joy on the other end. "You're serious?" "Yes," Victor said. "It's time we lift the right voices." Meanwhile, Janelle was at home, helping Nia with her school project. Nia looked up and asked, "Mom, why do people treat others badly?" Janelle smiled gently. "Sometimes, baby, people forget that kindness costs nothing." Nia tilted her head. "Did Daddy fix the store?" Janelle kissed her forehead. "He's working on something better than that." By the next morning, the world had changed. It started with a single video. A customer at Luxora had filmed the moment Victor Harris stood calmly in the store, exposing the staff and announcing its closure. The video was just 2 minutes long, but it was enough. It hit social media like a storm. Within hours, it had over 1 million views. By afternoon, it was trending worldwide. CEO shuts down luxury store for insulting his wife. Man defends wife's dignity in the most powerful way. Real-life justice served cold and classy. Janelle, sitting in her living room with Nia, opened her phone and gasped softly. Her face filled with emotion as she scrolled through thousands of supportive comments. "She's so graceful." He didn't yell. He didn't curse. He just ended them with power and silence. "This is how you protect your queen." Tears welled up in her eyes, not because she was sad, but because people saw her. Not as someone's wife, not just as a woman, but as someone who had been wronged and stood up for. She looked at Nia and whispered, "Sometimes, baby, truth travels faster than lies." Meanwhile, the corporate heads of Luxora International were in panic. The CEO of the brand, Mr. Kelvin Lang, sat in a boardroom surrounded by silence. He had just gotten off a call with Victor Harris, and it hadn't gone well. "He's serious," he muttered, rubbing his forehead. "He's pulling out of all our buildings, and he's making sure the world knows why." One of the board members asked, "Can't we apologize? Fix this?" Kelvin shook his head. "Too late. That video is everywhere. This is brand damage we can't clean up overnight." Another executive sighed. "The staff involved." "Fired," Kelvin said. "Effective immediately." But it's not enough. At the same time, Victor was in his office, but he wasn't celebrating. Instead, he was planning the next step. He looked over design sketches Ava had sent. Her idea was to turn the old Luxora space into a boutique brand. Elegant, inclusive, and community-focused. Victor liked that. "Make it happen," he told her. Then he opened his email. Hundreds of messages, thank you notes, stories from women who had faced the same kind of silent hate. One message stood out. "Thank you, Mr. Harris. You gave us hope. You reminded the world that dignity matters, and that real men protect without shouting." Victor closed the laptop and leaned back. He wasn't looking for praise. He just wanted fairness. And now, more than ever, he realized something important. This wasn't just about his wife. This was about every woman who had ever been made to feel less. Back at home, Janelle received a call from a TV host. "We'd love to have you on the show," the host said. "You don't need to speak about your husband. We want your voice." Janelle hesitated. She wasn't used to public attention. But then she remembered Nia's eyes, the way her daughter looked at her like she was a hero. "Yes," she said softly. "I'll come." By the next day, hashtags filled social media. Hashtag dignity wins. Hashtag protect her. Hashtag Janelle deserved better. Luxora's stock dropped by 14%, and the old store on Fifth Avenue closed. The sign was taken down, the windows covered in black. But soon, a new one would rise, with a name that told a different story. The studio was bright, filled with camera lights and quiet whispers. The audience sat silently, their eyes fixed on the stage. They were waiting for someone the world had seen in a video but never heard speak. Then she entered. Janelle Harris, calm and elegant, walked onto the stage. She wore a simple white blouse, no expensive jewelry, no heavy makeup, just a soft smile and eyes that had seen pain but chose peace. The host stood and shook her hand. "Janelle, thank you for being here." She nodded. "Thank you for giving me space to speak." The interview began. At first, the questions were light, about her background, her work as a community artist, and her family. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. The host leaned forward. "When you were mistreated in that store, what went through your mind?" Janelle paused. The room was still. "I felt invisible," she said softly. "Like I didn't belong. Like I had walked into a space where my skin and silence made me less." A quiet gasp spread through the audience. But, she continued, what hurt more was how normal it felt. Because it wasn't the first time. The host nodded slowly. "And then your husband stepped in. The world saw what he did. Were you surprised?" Janelle smiled gently. "Not at all. Victor doesn't just love me, he respects me. And when someone he loves is hurt, he doesn't fight with noise. He fights with action." The audience clapped softly, but it wasn't just applause. It was admiration. Then Janelle added something unexpected. "But this story isn't just about me. It's about every woman who's been judged by her clothes, her hair, her accent, her skin." She turned to the camera. "To every girl watching this, I want you to know, you belong. Even when they try to make you feel small, you matter." Backstage, Victor watched on a small screen, eyes filled with pride. He wasn't a man who cried easily, but today, he felt something deeper than tears. He whispered, "That's my queen." After the show aired, social media exploded again. But this time, it wasn't just about the shutdown. It was about Janelle. Clips of her interviews spread across platforms with millions of views. She didn't scream. She didn't curse. She just stood tall and spoke truth. Powerful, beautiful, unshakable. We need more Janelle Harrises in this world. The old store space, once filled with shallow luxury, now had a new story attached to it. A real story. Meanwhile, Tiffany, the store employee who had humiliated Janelle, watched the interview from her apartment. Her job was gone, and her face had become a symbol of everything wrong with modern customer service. She didn't cry. But for the first time, she understood the damage of her actions. "I judged her," she whispered to herself, "and I didn't even see her." She picked up her phone, opened a notes app, and began writing an apology. Not for social media, but for Janelle. Elsewhere, young girls across the country shared stories of times they were mistreated in public. And one thing kept showing up in every post. Janelle gave me the courage to say, I deserve better. In a quiet moment at home, Janelle sat with Victor, holding a warm cup of tea. Do you regret what you did? She asked him. He shook his head. Not for a second. She looked at him. Not even the attention. The media storm. Victor smiled. You deserve the world's respect. Now they finally see what I've seen all along. Weeks passed. The old luxury store, once proud, cold, and exclusive, now stood silent behind black curtains. Its name had been removed from the walls. No more bright lights, no more arrogant smiles behind glass counters. But something new was coming. Across the city, whispers spread. Something's opening soon, and it's different. Victor Harris had been working quietly, away from reporters and cameras. Not for revenge, but for redemption. He had bought the building, yes. But what he wanted now was bigger than business. He wanted legacy. In a large room filled with sketches, samples, and soft music, Janelle stood holding a small nameplate. It said, House of Grace. She looked at Victor. You really want to name it after me? No, he smiled. I want to name it after what you are. Grace, he said again. You didn't fight hate with hate. You didn't scream. You stood tall, quiet, and proud. That changed everything. She didn't reply. Her eyes said it all. The launch day came. The city watched. The press gathered, waiting for a dramatic, flashy opening. But instead, they got something beautifully different. The doors of House of Grace opened with a single message on the glass. Not all luxury is expensive. Some of it is just respect. Inside, the store was peaceful. Warm colors, local artists' work, a quiet library corner for children. Soft jazz played in the background. This was not a place that sold just clothes or perfumes. This was a place that sold dignity. At the center of the store, a plaque was placed. It read, This space stands for everyone who's ever been judged before being seen. Janelle gave a short speech. Just a few words, but they left everyone in the room breathless. I was once told I didn't belong here, she said. Now, I own the keys, not to prove them wrong, but to show every girl who's watching, you are more than they say you are. The room erupted into applause, not loud or wild, but full of respect. Tiffany, the former store employee, was in the crowd. She stood quietly, not expecting to be noticed. When Janelle saw her, their eyes met. For a second, time froze. Tiffany lowered her gaze, ashamed. But then, Janelle walked over to her. Slowly, calmly, and in front of the cameras, she did something that silenced the whole room. She hugged her. A long, forgiving, human hug. Whispers filled the air. Janelle spoke just loud enough for Tiffany to hear. Sometimes we're not bad people, just blind. Tiffany couldn't stop her tears. I'm sorry, she said. I know, Janelle replied. Online, the story hit again. But this time, the headlines were different. From hate to healing, Janelle teaches the world what grace really means. A store born from pain becomes a symbol of hope. The softest voice changed the loudest room. Even those who didn't know fashion now knew House of Grace. Not because of wealth, but because of worth. Later that evening, Nia, Janelle's daughter, walked through the store holding her mother's hand. She looked up and said, Mom, are you famous now? Janelle laughed gently. No, baby, I'm just seen. Nia squeezed her hand. Then one day, I want to be seen too. You will, Janelle whispered. And when they look at you, they'll see more than skin or money. They'll see strength, just like yours. Across the city, women of all backgrounds, sizes, and stories walked into the new store. Some bought things, some just looked, but all of them left with something money couldn't buy. The feeling of finally belonging. A soft breeze moved through the open glass doors of House of Grace. The sunlight poured in, touching every corner of the new store, now a symbol of respect, dignity, and quiet power. Janelle stood near the window, sipping tea and watching people enter. Mothers, teenagers, elderly women. Some rich, some not. Some came to shop. Some just came to feel seen. And that's exactly what she had wanted. Across the street, a group of girls stood by a wall, reading the words painted in gold. You don't need to raise your voice. You just need to raise your worth. One of them pulled out her phone and clicked a selfie. Another whispered, "This place feels different." The oldest girl replied, "This place is proof we matter." A week later, the story took a new turn. It started with a letter. From a small town, from a 16-year-old girl named Amaya. She wrote to Janelle, "I watched what happened to you. I cried, because it reminded me of what happened to me. I was kicked out of a bookstore last year because they thought I couldn't afford anything. I never told anyone, but you gave me the courage to speak. Thank you." Janelle read the letter again and again. She held it close to her heart and whispered, "We have to do more." That same day, Janelle called Victor. "I want to start something," she said. "Not just a store. A movement. A project for every girl who feels unseen. A place where they can speak, create, and rise." Victor didn't ask questions. He simply replied, "Tell me what you need." Within weeks, the Grace Project was born. It was more than a building. It was a program. Free mentorships, workshops for young women, art therapy, scholarships, and job training. And it spread fast. City after city. One center became 3, then 5. Each one had the same message. Come as you are. Leave as who you were always meant to be. The media couldn't keep up. From silent pain to global power, the woman who changed everything without shouting. Janelle Harris, the quiet voice heard around the world. Then came a national award. Janelle was invited to speak in Washington, D.C. The room was full of leaders, politicians, business tycoons. She wore a simple dress, her natural curls framing her face. When she stepped on stage, the room grew quiet. She began, "I was humiliated in a store, and that moment could have made me bitter. But I chose to build something better. Because real power doesn't come from hurting others, it comes from healing others." She paused. The silence was heavy. Then she continued, "To every young girl who's ever been judged, stand tall. You are not a mistake. You are not a burden. You are the story this world needs." The room rose in a standing ovation. Some people cried. Some just stood, stunned. Back home, Janelle sat with Victor on the balcony. They looked at the night sky, holding hands. "Do you think it's over?" she asked. Victor smiled. "No, love. It's just beginning." That night, thousands of girls around the world posted one line under the hashtag Grace Movement. They tried to shut her down. She opened a door for all of us instead.